pleasant day and a warm welcome to your favorite show, Law and Order. Many insightful topics that we are moving ahead with discussions, giving you pieces of information that will be fruitful for you all to involve in your future dealings. Not knowing the law is not an excuse. So ladies and gentlemen, we're welcoming you all for Law and Order. Today, one of the most insightful topics, narcotics, we are going to discuss. And we welcome our guest, Mr. Prashanthalal Alvis, President's Counsel. Thank you very much, sir, for accepting our invitation and joining our show. And sir, today, narcotics, many words, many rumors, and there are many myths and some concerns in the society regarding narcotics. To expose simply what narcotics are.
Yeah, narcotics is a very interesting, you and I, everyone. When we are born to this world, we want to have fun, we want to enjoy life. So there are different modes, different ways, the movies, TV programs and things like that people enjoy. And there is one extreme which has been there from the start of this whole world, I believe, is alcohol, the narcotics that get you intoxicated. So when you get intoxicated, you get to another world and you find you commit many more offenses like murder, rape, and so it leads to so many. Right. So therefore, what is basically the concept is intoxication takes us to a different level. Now, there are certain intoxicants that has to be regulated, like liquor, cigarettes is permissible.
Right.
But then it is discouraged and also controlled and regulated. So there are certain things which we can discuss, how we regulate the liquor or the alcohol and how we regulate the cigarettes which is there. And that is actually a part of a culture of any nation. Every nation has different kind of alcohol. We call it Scotch, it comes from Scotland, and we say any certain drinks goes with the culture.
Yes.
So and with a history background, like say VAT 69, they say in the VAT 69 there was a horse, and that was tasty, and therefore now they put a piece of horse like that. Right. There's a lot of stories, culture, it varies from according to country to country. So there is a clear distinction of alcohol and cigarettes which we can discuss further.
Right.
But there are something which destroy you completely.
Right.
Instant. There is no reverse sometimes. And important thing is you get here addicted and you become a habitual drinker, habitual smoker, habitual taking narcotics. And narcotics like heroin, ice, opium, morphine, cocaine, those are little dangerous to your body. It doesn't, not that others are not dangerous. If you take in excess, anything is dangerous.
Right.
You take excess of carbohydrate, it is dangerous. If it is excess of fatty oil or whatever in food, it is dangerous.
Yes.
But these narcotics that you referred to actually kills a person instantly, and you get addicted and you can never get reversed. So these are in the world over, and we call it transnational crimes, where the world believes that those has to be controlled, because this is international. You take, as I said before, the alcohol or cigarettes can be localized. It is so we can easily regulate. But like heroin, ice, it is not only manufactured here. It is manufactured in another part of the country, and there is a network. And I like to stress here, the important feature is there is terrorism.
Right.
The terrorism is linked to narcotics. So that's a danger. Always terrorism gets its funding from narcotics business because it's so expensive. It's worth, you would have seen in the TV, every one of you, that it is, we are talking of millions of dollars of value. Little bit of heroin is worth thousands of rupees, even just to smoke. So that is a dangerous one.
Right. So if I may ask you, sir, what is the reason for narcotics to be prohibited by law? Is that the word intoxication, or it has a deeper context?
Individually it get intoxicated, but socially, culturally, any intoxicant can be controlled, regulated, like alcohol and cigarettes. But when you take heroin, ice, that kind of thing kills a generation. And most of the people who get addicted, sadly, regrettably, are the people who are the age of 15 to 20. And that is the starting point of life. So when you get addicted at that point of age, what happens is that the whole life of an individual is killed. And there is no reversal back. Because people then say, heroin kara. You are castigated, and there is no reversal back, and you are habitually, you can't easily get away from it. So we have to ban it, we have to prohibit it. What we call this narcotics such as cocaine, ice, heroin has to be prohibited.
Right. So with this current law, there were certain amendments even taken to certain acts, this Poisonous Opium and Dangerous Drug Amendment Act number 41 of 2022. So
Exactly.
can we just explain that as well?
Yes. Now if you take the whole history, if you take the poison and drug opium thing, the British from 1929 started regulating it. You can see if you take the legislative in 1925, as far back as that period. But then in 1984, Act number 13 brought in the Poison, Opium and Dangerous Drug Act. Now that was there because earlier there was no heroin. So to regulate these, a law was brought in 1984. So the new amendment came, as you said, the Act number 41 of 2022, it was certified by the Speaker. A law has to be signed by the Speaker to get effect in this country, and it was 23rd of November last year. Just few months, I believe, about 3 months ago, almost 2 months or 2.5 months. Before this law was presented by the Honourable Minister of Justice, Mr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa, and unanimously passed by the Parliament, and therefore, and even when it signed by the Speaker, it get affected. And we can discuss, this is very important for you layman to understand what's happening. So we can go through the process, the changes that took place from 1984 to this Act number 2022, which I believe as a lawyer is very comprehensive and very practical, very progressive. We are taking everything to future and covering up any loophole that was there, which came from 1984 Act.
Shall we, sir, proceed with that changes as well at the moment?
Yes. Now earlier, this whole narcotics, we put it in a general term, was put in one bucket. The good example would be like we take opium, we call it ganja, cannabis sativa. Right, ganja was included with as dangerous drugs or narcotics with heroin, cocaine, and that. Now, you are Ayurvedic, a person who studies, and I think you are a doctor now, and hopefully very soon, right? They use Ayurveda now. I am in the University of Council of Sri Vikramarajah. It is used as a medicine too. It is required. So what they do is they go to Courthouse Ayurvedic Institute, which is very formal, and obtain this cannabis sativa into this obtained for medicine. So it is not as dangerous there. That's why there is a new debate, you know, over there, Charita, whether we should legalize it, cannabis sativa, whether we should have an industry so that we can export it, right? Now, in the world, that's the export industry. As I said earlier, these are transnational crimes, heroin. No country do manufacturing of heroin as a business. But there are many countries which indulge in manufacturing of cannabis sativa or ganja, for that matter. Right? So, it's a debate. I don't want to dwell into that debate. That's another forum, of course. We all may have a different viewpoint. But whatever come what may, that's a debate. And that was put together. So 2022 is very progressive because they separated this. And separate law, the separate regime comes with cannabis sativa and opium. But for heroin, cocaine, and they added something new, which we are now very concerned, ice. And I'll have to give this word in this methamphetamine, right? That's exactly scientific name. So ice is something which we started hearing in the last 2 years kind of thing, and seems to be very prominent among the school-going children. So the advantage is that now that has been brought into the law.
Right.
So that's a very progressive, and brought it under narcotics, which was not there. So that is, when you take the categorization, I think it's a very clear, good categorization, where separating cannabis sativa or ganja for that matter with the rest of it, and showing how there is a difference. There is a difference.
And even including which were not included.
Exactly like ice. So that is a very progressive one factor that came into being. And as we can discuss in again, bail, the trial, the punishment varies.
Depending on the amount.
Exactly. Amount as well as what it is. Cannabis sativa. Now earlier, even very interesting, I like to stress here, in 1984, when you have 5 kilograms of cannabis sativa or ganja for that matter, more than 5 kilograms, that was equal to 2 grams of heroin. And therefore it was in the category you can't get bail.
Right.
But what is the sentence? Sentence was a fine or 2 years jail term. Whereas the earlier one was death sentence for heroin. For heroin.
Right.
So they put all this in one basket, though the sentencing was different, Charita, right? So that has been very clearly now demarcated, because earlier it was either a fine or a jail term.
Right.
So if you can always impose a fine and stop at it.
Yes.
Right? But for cannabis sativa, ganja, but now that have been taken away, and of the putting out in one category is taken away. So they will have the same punishment for ganja.
Right.
So that's a very progressive part. Even as a person who is very close to Ayurveda, I think that's a recognition of a truth, reality, rather than dwell on a thing in that. So making that difference was very vital.
So the difference being a personality onto both the administrative aspect of Ayurveda medicine and to a President's Council in law, you clearly this demarcation and what is included in the new amendment is fruitful.
Absolutely. Now say, I want to smoke ganja, that I know then my consequence.
Right.
It's not very serious as I smoke heroin or ice. But that is important.
Right.
Because the outcome is different. So when I make a choice of what to have, right, the sentence varies. Earlier it was not so. So I think it is the reality, is the truth that has prevailed by making this demarcation.
And even sir, when it comes to those medical perspectives, certain those intoxicating so-called materials can be used in certain process of preparing medicines.
Yes.
So now with this new amendment and introduction of new piece of legislature and those consequences, it won't affect that proceedings. Am I correct?
No, still cannabis sativa is not legal.
Right.
You can't have legally, I can't smoke now cannabis sativa. Right? Because this is a very interesting debate. It was said that British banned this and brought in alcohol so that people get intoxicated. But because we did not get malaria when we were fighting them in the jungle, it's because of usage of ganja in our medicine. So that's a very reason why, according to historians, why the British banned cannabis sativa to harm the Sri Lankans who were fighting the British. So anyway, that's a debate, separate debate.
Yes.
But still we can't smoke. Say, I want to smoke ganja, I can't smoke. But the punishment won't be that heavy as heroin.
Right.
There is a distinction, which is, I think, very correct.
Yes. So we exposed different types of narcotics that is being included in the new amendments and the previous existing ones, and we clearly explained the change in those relevant proceedings. And so just emphasizing a small thing in the middle, beetle.
Yes.
The story about that, people
Very
say numerous stories about,
Yes.
like, is it prohibited selling, and even pieces of tobacco included. Some says, what is the real scenario?
Tobacco, if you take it, has chunakam or hunu as we call it in Sinhala, and of course tobacco.
Yes.
So there is tobacco. So there is a fight that by the narcotics people who are activists to remove tobacco from this, because actually the issue is you get oral cancer.
Right.
Due to beetle eating. That's been accepted fact.
Right.
But our culture, Sri Lankan culture, had been very clear as a part of culture. If you take any Sri Lankan in the past, a farmer would, that's a part of it. And if you take a dane to a monk, that what comes last. So that has been a part of our culture, and it is not actually a offense as such, but of course you can't chew it and throw your beetle thing in public and harm the public environment. Yes.
That's only the consequence.
That's the only consequence.
Right. Otherwise, like selling or having certain beetles,
it is
not prohibited by law.
No, it's our part of our culture.
Right. Okay. So when it comes to these types of consequences, and there are certain things that, as you mentioned in your explanations, distinguish between alcohol and tobacco. Can you just explain that?
Yes, actually it has been researched and found that alcohol and mostly tobacco leads to cancer. Alcohol, not really. The tobacco or cigarettes or whatever smoking leads to cancer. So there are different forms like cigars where you don't inhale. Not that I'm justifying a cigar, but then there are different distinctions on cigars, cigarettes and things like that. So the law has to come in for people there was an outcry, okay, in the movies the main actor would smoke, and therefore that would inspire young people, the school children to smoke. Let me confess, I as a youngster took a paper, roll it and smoke in the toilet. So that's a fact. I like to stress here because we couldn't buy a cigarette, so I would roll the paper and smoke, light it and smoke. So there is a truth in that it inspires this kind of public viewing, inspires young people to smoke. Right. So what they did by this law of the Alcoholic Act is that you can't now advertise. You can't advertise beer, any liquor, because earlier there are, it was a corporate social event. This industry would come and advertise like cricket match or whatever, like say.
And even without saying the brand names, I would like to emphasize in certain cases in media personnel, when taking videographs also, we are avoiding those places in our video clips as well.
Exactly, they will blur it.
And even for the news items, they prepare the things without those certain so-called names of certain things avoiding them.
Worst come to worst, if it is important, they would blur it and show it. So that is a school of thought, which I don't want to debate yes or no. I'm a marketeer. I believe in free marketing, so I will stop at that. So coming back, it's a choice of the customer to me as a marketeer. So I will not argue on that as from a marketing aspect. I'm here as a lawyer anyway. I'm a lawyer and a marketeer both. So I will leave my marketing side out and I'll come with the legal side out. So since it inspires people, they decided, yes, correct, Parliament decided. That is, we all decided, Sri Lanka, when the Parliament enacted or like the earlier one, we all enact the law, we enact the law. So in that kind of a context, don't have publicity, don't have public smoking. This is accepted. If you go to an airport, there is a special area for smoking. And if you go in the airplane, you can't smoke, because it is passive smoking. Others get affected. I can't have a right to smoke when it affects you now. Right? If you are pregnant with a child, right, my smoking might affect that child who is not even have a legal entity. We say when a child is born only you have a legal entity. A person as identified as a person. So the child get affected, or the baby, fetus, not the baby, fetus get affected. So we have to regulate. I use the word regulate, not prohibition there. So you regulate very simply by that, and of course there are other methods, which is not by imposing high taxes. Then that tax has to be added to the price of that, and then the prices go up. And then what happens is, when the prices goes up, right, people will not consume. But we have to keep in mind, there is a law called excise ordinance, and they go now every liquor bottle has that label, which shows that the tax has been paid, so that revenue comes to the country. But it's a known fact, if you go to the magistrate court, there are at least 10, 15 sometimes in a day where they sell illegal liquor. So when the prices of legal liquor goes up, illegal increases. So that's a problem. Actually, let me be clear on this. When people don't excessively smoke, if you have hope of life. I have watched accused who are in the dock. They are all youth who has they don't have a real good, strong employment. Sometimes they are self-employment. Most of them are laborers who only live day-to-day life.
With the day's pay and everything.
Exactly, day's pay life. So we have to not appreciate, but understand the cause of it is that they only live this moment. And so they feel, okay, having a heroin or whatever is material. So let me explain an interesting episode that happened to me. I was building my house, so that time there was no machinery of putting the concrete on the slab. So you had to use manual laborers. And at that time it was a custom that the house owner must bring biryani to all the workers. I mean, that's a custom. The contractor told me, it's a contractor who told me, sir, again, no biryani. So I asked how many, and I went bought the biryani. Moment I walked in during the lunchtime, I can smell the heroin smell. Right? These are, that is hard work, Charita. Putting concrete in, because there was limited time, you had to finish the job. Right? So it was hard work. So, and they were working like machines. At that time there was no gadgets, this whole process that automatically it get there, pumped up and done. So I was a state council at that time. Now I realize, what's happening? So without heroin, they won't work. So hard work.
Need heroin.
They will forget everything and they work hard. But then what? They will not last long, I asked. They said yes, because they don't have a stable family, they don't have anything, right? So that's what they do, right? So I shifted away, because that's a very interesting, shifted away immediately after giving the thing, because
as
technically, exactly, I would be charged for aiding and abetting if the police comes, if I'm there, right? But then it has already happened, I can't stop it. And the concrete system is moving. So I just give you one classic example of why people indulge in this. It is because of lack of hope in a because and there is among the young crowd, it has no the richness or poor. Our system doesn't support, because stress is there for young people. There is frustration. Like the good old days, there was no support from parents. Parents are sometimes distant. So young boys and girls sometimes take this to be just away from the reality. I attribute that to the lack of support from the parents. I very clearly say that. The parents are close to the children, this never happens. So you have to understand the children, be understanding. So that's where this whole middle class and the upper rich class take it, because not because of simple fun, because they are frustrated. There are issues they can't come out with, and our system at this moment of time has no such system to support. So
that means apart from law and the consequences, there's a hidden thing that we have to reveal with regard to narcotics.
Charita, why are you and I not taking? Because you're going to take oaths as a lawyer. I'm a lawyer. I will lose everything in my life if I get caught. Right? I will drive carefully. I won't get drunk and drive, because if I'm caught, I have to, as a President's Counsel, get into the dock. Right? So there is something to think of. Right? Most of the people who are watching here, I believe, has something in life to protect family, status, everything. So then we won't excessively smoke, we don't excessively have liquor, we don't basically excessively have any narcotics at all. That's a very reason.
We have to have something more than that.
Exactly. So the country, when we don't have hope, and there is no system for young people to get help if there is an issue, stress, these are the outcome.
Right. So when considering those things, dealing with this topic, the word bailable came into play.
Yes.
So the bail, how does it play?
Interesting. Now, what is bail? A man is arrested. The moment you say arrested, Charit, what happens is you can't move. The basic arrest means you have to hold like this and say you can't move. That's what the police will do. So Narcotic Bureau or the police department or the excise ordinance or whatever, whoever who is in charge of that will stop you moving.
Right.
Now we have a freedom of movement under Article 14. I can move wherever I want. Right, except like this premises Rupavahini, I have to get permission and come in. Otherwise, I am free to move. Now it is stopped. Now we call it custody. I have taken you into custody. Then we say, law, you, the executive or the police, can't hold a person more than 24 hours. Immediately you have to be brought before judiciary. Because as you know, our system has executive legislature make the law, like what happened this amendment.
Yes.
The legislature, our representative made the law in 2022 in November and certified by the speaker who is heading it. Now executive has arrested the person. Then it is brought before the judiciary. Judiciary is independent.
Yes.
So now the issue comes bail. Bail means very simply that you get bail so that you have to come before court again to face justice, to face the system, right? And then you can go home. But then there are sureties who will ensure that you are brought before court. So there will be surety bail, sometimes personal bail, sometimes they will give money. It all depends on the gravity of the offense. And sometimes, like archaeology, you won't get bail at all. Because archaeology is something irreversible and therefore no bail at all. So bail is a very vital one. And here, as we discussed so far, this offense is a very serious offense and therefore the bail has to be strict.
Right. So in that case, bail is not granted in certain cases. Am I correct, sir? For each and everything with this new amendment, is there any change?
Absolutely. Earlier, if you take 1984, before this, the law was that you have to get bail if it is below this schedule. As I said before, 5 kilograms of cannabis sativa or ganja, 2 grams of heroin, then you have to go to High Court and get bail.
Yes.
And show, I like to repeat, exceptional circumstances. Exceptional circumstances. Now, what is that? Right? Now, we normally will say, judge will give bail generally, because objective is to get you back.
Right.
Now, here we have to show what are my exceptional circumstances. What does it mean? That I cannot get medicine in the prison for a sickness I have. Now, that's a clear exceptional circumstance because, say, I'm very critical, I like to underline, just not a diabetic, just not a person with cholesterol that most of the people have. That is not exceptional in today's context.
Yes.
But imagine if my sickness is such that I have to get personal treatment and say, I am the only one looking after a disabled child.
Right.
I'm the only one. There is no other. So those are, I'm just giving you 2 examples like that. That I think that gives you an idea.
Yes.
What exceptions come, not a diabetic, which I am a diabetic, which is not a factor. It's common, generally one. Cholesterol, same. I have cholesterol. No, but it has to be then, right, that irreversible, that kind of treatment cannot and be given in the prison. So that is why this exceptional circumstance is crucial.
Right. So with those exceptional circumstances, as you said, they are crucial. Can we obtain bail for non-bailable offences?
You can.
Right.
You can. You have to show to the satisfaction of court that. So that was the earlier law.
Right.
The distinction or the result that happened thereafter was very clear. They brought in 10 grams of pure heroin. Now that is, I like to tell you the process. It is sent to government analysts. Sometimes these are mixed with powder and so many other things. So the government analysts determine what is the pure heroin. And if it exceeds 10, now that means dangerous. You have to come to Court of Appeal.
Right.
If it is less than 10 kilograms, but then more than 2, then you go to the High Court of that. Now, why it is crucial is because Court of Appeal is only in Colombo. So anyone in Jaffna, Mathura, Kapitikollava, Mathura, any part of the country, they have to come to Colombo. It's not an easy one. It's a tedious process. Access is difficult. So they made it difficult to get bail. They have to come to Colombo and get court. But High Court, there are in each province High Court.
Yes.
So it is within your province at least. Like the Western Province, we have about 6-7 High Courts.
High Courts.
Colombo itself has about 8, I believe. Yes, right. So we have so many.
So many.
Right. So in that kind of a context, the bail has been, I think, has been made that you, if it is more than 10 kilograms of pure heroin, then only you can get bail by the Court of Appeal. And that distinction, I think, is very vital. So it makes it difficult if you are having a larger quantity.
Right.
Big quantity, large quantity. So there was a protest by people that it is anti-citizen. Why? Because you have to spend a lot of money, and if you are planted with that, say you are falsely implicated, because this is a dangerous law.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to, politically or whatever way to put you in trouble. You are my tenant, I want to get rid of you. So I catch hold of the police and I put heroin, 10 grams and above. You are finished. Right? You have to get exceptions. That's a danger here. Danger of the other side of this one. So in that kind of a context, Charit, what happens is the people argued that it hampers a right of an individual. But then Honorable Minister and the government is adamant that we have to put a stop to this one.
Yes.
And we have to make it very difficult. So until we control these things, they will not, looks like they will not change. So, the bail of different categories is very interesting, and in that is pure heroin. So at the trial one, I will discuss how government analyst comes into play.
Just we'll explain at the moment, so how the government analyst comes into play.
Now, anything like this has to go before government analyst. So in this kind of a scenario, the government analyst weighs it and sends the pure quantity, exactly quantity. Now, good old day, the issue in government analysis is, we take it today, that entire country, now say if you take even a Galembidunu, wherever there is heroin found, it has to come to Colombo. Police officer has to enter the book and carry the heroin to Colombo, hand over to the government analyst department.
Right.
So he has to analyze. How many officers are there in Sri Lanka now to analyze this? Very few in number. So it takes some time there. Not because they have failed, but then they
need time to...
It takes times because entire Sri Lanka comes to Colombo. And then it goes back to courts. So with a report. Now it takes a very long time. So that's a problem here. So in that kind of a context, government analyst delay is there, and to determine the pure one was the issue. Now here, government analyst has to and should send the report within 12 months in the amendment.
Right.
So they have to find the way, and the government has to find the answer. Right? Because it's not a power, any issue of judicial judges or lawyers. It's the executive machinery, and for that the government should and must find the money to get required science graduates,
yes,
as many as possible. But to me, I have another answer. We should decentralize. We should have each province a government analyst to handle that, because the cost of taking heroin to Colombo back, and that get corrupted.
Yes, sometimes they lose faith.
And corrupted, because it's very expensive, as I said. So there can be one person who can take it out and put seal and do that and get the heroin out to the market.
Yes,
because it's very, very expensive. It's so valuable. It's very expensive, Charit. So in that kind of a context, right, I I believe it has to be decentralized.
Right. So, moving ahead with what we talked about advertising, let's take a small scenario. So, we talked about drugs, and apart from these legal consequences, we talked a lot about the other side, the story. It's like the story behind the bars, like of a certain person. So, with that exposure, I'm just going to create a small scenario. There's a party, and people, they consume alcohol. So, it's regulated, and in a certain context, yes, majority of the functions, they do use them. So a person takes a glass of alcohol, yes, I'm not going to say any of the names, but a glass of alcohol and liquor, he moves out to the road and just chilling the moment, drinking, walking along the road. Is it
that is prohibited? Very simple.
Is it comes under advertising?
Drink in, it's not advertising only. The law very clearly specified that you cannot drink in public. Right. So you have to get into a place, closed place, and provide that. And our culture is such that, when ladies are there, immediately slowly the men go to a side and corner. That's interesting culture. Right? I mean, it shows that people don't agree with that kind of thing, and then there is a little corner and they take a drink. So,
yes. So we have a couple of minutes remaining to conclude this episode. So shall we just concentrate on vicarious liability at the latter part of our program?
Vicarious liability
in certain consequences related to these narcotics.
Yeah. Now, you referring to vicarious liability, Charita, is that whatever committed by my servant,
yes,
whether that involves me,
like a company, the employees.
Exactly.
Yes.
This whole national tobacco one, say my company worker goes and advertise in a place, right? I am liable as a director, as a manager. So that's what I think you are referring to. So that's dangerous. So it get you liable as a director. I was never there. I was totally at home. I never knew that a man is publicly drinking or providing liquor publicly and kind of thing. And you need a permit, of course, to indulge in such a endeavor. So you need a permit to sell liquor.
Right. Okay. So another more thing additionally that I want to emphasize, some people they purchase liquor from a particular place and they are afraid to get it transported to the other place. Sometimes there is a rumor that to a party or something like that, 10-15 number of bottles they need to transport at a certain time. Is there a particular number? Or
of course. There is a particular number that you can possess.
Right.
I can possess
this much
of liquor, and that's there in the law regulations actually, and that is there. Unless you are a shop, a shop or a restaurant, you can't keep a limit. So in that kind of a context, transporting is a issue. Because what I want to stress here is interesting. Another thing that came into my mind is today the law is such that a lady can't go and buy liquor. That was brought by British. It still remains. Now there is a fundamental right case pending filed by ladies asking why it's a gender discrimination. Why only men can buy a liquor and why not an adult lady can buy liquor. So it's very interesting where a lady today cannot go to that's in the permit, that's in the regulations. You can't go and buy liquor. They will not give you, in fact.
Right. Okay. So there are certain regulations and things that we need to adopt, and we just talked about certain consequences and stories regard to narcotic. It's really interesting that when people are indulged with these types of drugs which is prohibited, which intoxicate yourselves, it's a medical concern as well, but to law that is prohibited and you'll be behind the bars, or you need to follow legal consequences and many more issues after being trapped with those types of things. So one of my friends, suppose few friends are there, they're using that type of a prohibited drug. I'm also there. So I'm not using, but I'm thoroughly advising them not to use. This is prohibited, so we'll all fall in trouble. At the same time the police come, I'm also there. What will happen to myself?
Yes. Now say very interesting, the law here is possession of heroin, say heroin. So who possessed it will be the crucial issue.
Yes.
Now say heroin thing, if you are smoking, of course your friend is smoking, then he is possessing it. You will be exculpated. But imagine there is little heroin or cannabis, whatever, ganja on the table. Then what happens? You are liable. Right? Unless you give a statement saying, no, my friend, my machang did it. So you have to betray. So what I suggest to you is, in the first place, tell your friends, Machan, don't do that. As a lawyer, you should say that.
Yes.
Or for that matter, any law-abiding citizen must say that. Machan, don't do this. We are all together. I get caught. Right? I'm not part of this. So I'm sorry. Then I'm leaving. Right? You can't eat the cake and have the cake. You can't stay there and later say, I was there when he was, taking it. So that very simple is that.
Right. So in that case, certain cases we find that in a certain protest or whatever it is, if we are placed there and if we were there, present there, and we were caught, we have to follow certain legal proceedings. As we can't say that no, I just wait there to watch that thing, so I'm not liable and I can't come directly out. So in that case, if the police comes and it takes into their custody and move ahead with the thing, so how should I proceed legally in that manner? I'm innocent, so how law can help myself?
Be innocent and be straightforward. Be honest to the police. You have to say exactly what happened. So there you may betray your best friend, whom you would have never done in life, for that matter. But then that's a choice you make.
Yes.
So that's it.
The public will say President's Council said us to betray. Yes, that is to
not
protect.
Betray.
Yes.
Therefore you have to do it early and say don't do it, Machang.
Don't do it, Machang. And otherwise, not to fall in trouble, we have to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
So that is not a bad piece of advice, but we can manage something within our limits. We can advise ourselves. So the main perspective of this program, Law and Order, yes, we can advise them. We know what happens when this type of toxic material, narcotic is in our possession, what will happen us and what are the legal consequences that we have to follow. Just advise them, and if that is not possible, better move out. But if you are caught, just that is the final thing that we can do, sir.
Yes.
Okay, so with that episode, we are going to wind up the discussion for today, and we'll be following another fruitful episode on the same topic as well. Thank you very much, sir, Mr. Prashant Laldi, Alvis, President's Council, for doing the honors with us.
Thank you very much.
Right. Okay, so thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned with the rest of the programs, and Law and Order, it's your favorite show giving you legal solutions for your legal knowledge. Thank you very much for watching. Have a pleasant day.